All right, so let's talk about WrestleMania. In my Crown Jewel video, I said I was going to do a separate video on what I think they should do for WrestleMania, and I want to discuss the recent rumor about John Cena's return. In case you don't know, Cena's coming back in January to be on the Raw brand for his final year as an active competitor. He'll be wrestling from January to December of 2025, and WrestleMania 41 is set to be his last WrestleMania. So they have to fit him into the card. There was a report that came out, I want to say last week, that there are plans in place for Cena to chase his 17th title reign, and if he gets that, he would break Ric Flair's record. And he would be the first 17-time world champion, with of course Rick having 16 championships. Now, if you know a lot more than just surface level stuff about the wrestling business, or if you've done your homework, you know that number is incorrect. Ric Flair's been world champion more than 16 times because there were a lot of phantom title changes that the NWA and later WWE did not recognize. Rick is in the 20s when it comes to world championships, but within WWE canon, I understand the story being that. The question is that the plan for WrestleMania? Well, it might be, but that's not what I think they should do. So I'm going to tell you what I think the four big matches for WrestleMania should be. And when I tell you this, I'm talking about you put two of them on night one, two of them on night two. And I think it would be neat if they did sort of like a double main event. Now, I understand that you could say quadruple main event, but that kind of sounds very redundant. But if you say both WrestleMania nights will have double main events on top of all the other matches that have not been announced yet, that may or may not happen, it could end up being a very stacked show. I don't know if you know this, but the talk is that, and I mentioned this briefly in my Crown Jewel video, and it's not really the talk. I was directly told that if you want front row seats to both nights of WrestleMania, it's $50,000 for both nights. And it's never, ever been that expensive. So going to WrestleMania is going to be more expensive as the years go by, not just because of inflation, but because WWE's ticket prices themselves have been going up. And but it's Vegas, and everything's more expensive in Vegas. People are coming in from California. It's only about a 4.5 hour drive, maybe even shorter than that if you drive fast and when you go. So that's fine. Let's discuss what the plan could be and how they can sort of make. There's a way that they could have John Cena still do the story of him chasing the final championship and still have him doing something else at WrestleMania. And here's what I think they should do. First of all, the main event of WrestleMania 41 has for a long time been speculated to be Cody Rhodes versus The Rock one-on-one. Because of course what happened last WrestleMania night 1, night 2, and the night after WrestleMania where Rock pretty much made his intentions clear that he wanted Cody. Makes sense to do it at the biggest WrestleMania up until this point. So that makes a lot of sense. Cody defends the title against The Rock. Where does that leave Roman Reigns? Well, I think originally they were going to do Roman Reigns against Solo Sikoa, but I think because they've both gotten one pinfall on each other, I have a feeling that match is going to happen before WrestleMania. I think it'll happen maybe at the Royal Rumble, maybe at the Chamber. I think that Solo Sikoa, being the leader of the new bloodline, has in a way exposed him as not being a bad wrestler, because he's not that, but he doesn't have the charisma Roman Reigns does, and he doesn't have the upside that Roman and the Usos do. However, the guy who does have it, who's younger and really red hot, is Jacob Fatu. So I think Roman Reigns versus Jacob Fatu is a much more interesting match to do at WrestleMania. You can build up Jacob Fatu. You've got plenty of time. Give him some big wins, singles wins, and do the match with Roman. You could have Roman win or lose. There's multiple ways you can go about it, but I think that would be a solid co-main event for either of the two nights. Now, what about the other world championship, the Raw one, the one that Gunther has right now? Well, the rumor is CM Punk and Gunther at Survivor Series. Now, prior to that rumor, if you remember, A year ago, almost a year ago, when CM Punk signed with WWE after Brawl In, and he jumped back to WWE, the original plan was to do Seth Rollins versus CM Punk when he jumped over. And because of injuries to Punk and later Rollins and everything got shuffled around, that didn't happen. I think this year they're going to do Seth Rollins and Punk. They've had a lot of teases for it, a lot of, back and forth stare downs. It's a slow burn, but I think Seth Rollins and Punk makes a lot of sense for WrestleMania. And I think that would be a key match for the World Heavyweight title. You could have Punk beat Gunther, or you could have Seth beat Gunther. Either way works for me, right? Either way works for me. Now, where does that leave John Cena? Because if the idea is to have John Cena chase the title for WrestleMania, well, if you've already got Cody and the world title already set up, what do you do with John Cena? I don't think they should have Cena chasing the 17th title reign at WrestleMania. There's a different thing they can do. I think for WrestleMania, you should do John Cena versus Randy Orton, because both of them have discussed in the past that they wanted to have a WrestleMania match because they've had so many others. You have to remember, Randy Orton and John Cena feuded in 2007, in 2008, in 2009, a little bit in 2010. Like, these guys, and then again in 2014, like, these guys are kind of like the Austin and Rock of their eras, not in necessarily in terms of like popularity, but they both debuted around the same time. They both had similar pushes around the same time, and both were seen as the next generation when they were first coming up. So maybe not Cena right away, but Randy, certainly there were big aspirations for him. Cena had to more so work his way in using the basic Thugonomics character. So that's back in like 03, 04. So they want to do one more at Mania. I say give it to them. And here's the way I would book it. I think they should have Cena drop the fall to Randy so Randy beats him. And that's the last time they ever wrestle. They have a good match. You can have a stipulation, whatever you want. That's the last time they wrestle. Cena comes out on Raw the next night and says, he lost to Randy Orton, but he lost to a better man. And he's proud to have shared the ring with Randy Orton so many years. Just a really nice, heartfelt promo. But then Cena says, as I was looking at the lights, I said, I don't think I want to go out as somebody who lost at WrestleMania, because I did not want to lose my last WrestleMania. But I still have 9 more months here. And so what he can say is he declares himself for the King of the Ring. And he says he's going to go back in the gym. He's going to go back to train. He's going to work as hard as he can. And he says he will win the King of the Ring and get a shot at SummerSlam for the world title. And he says if he is pinned at any point between the night after WrestleMania up until SummerSlam, he will leave early. He will pack it up and go home, because he's never worked so hard in his life to get the one final reign. Then you have Cena win the King of the Ring cleanly. And then you don't have to have him, destroy the roster. Not that, but you show him off on TV a few different times. Not too often, maybe in tag matches or things like that. But after he wins the King of the Ring, he faces off against the World Heavyweight Champion at SummerSlam. Now, that could be CM Punk. That could be Seth Rollins. That could be Gunther. That could be Priest. It could be a number of different guys, and those are all matches that are going to do well. Let's not forget the series of matches that Punk and Cena had in 2011. So in the summer of 2011, so you're kind of throwing back to that. So what you do is you book this huge main event for SummerSlam, Punk and Cena, or Seth and Cena, whatever you want. And you have Cena not win the title, but come very, very close. Very close. Remember, he said, if I get pinned before SummerSlam. So if he gets pinned at SummerSlam, then, it's okay. He can still keep wrestling. Now, the other way to do it is you do have him win the title. I think him trying to win it and failing is more powerful than him winning it again, in my opinion. But if you want to have him win the title, that's fine. But I feel like if he wins the title at SummerSlam, it's going to end up being a situation like with Bryan Danielson in AEW, where he won it at All In, and we were just waiting to see him lose and leave, which is what happened at Wrestle Dream when he lost to Jon Moxley and took off. So to me, it's too similar, although it doesn't really matter because both companies borrow from each other, whether purposely or accidentally. It's wrestling. But there's two ways to go about it. Then you could have Cena drop it back, at a later pay-per-view, Survivor Series, whatever you want. You could even have him drop it back at, the last Raw of the year. You could even do something like that, or the first Raw of the next year. There's lots of ways you can go about it, but I think you could still do the story of Cena going for one more, and failing or even succeeding, but you don't have to sacrifice your CM Punk, Seth Rollins, or Cody Cena main events. Cody Rock main events. Plus, let's not forget that in 2013, CM Punk himself felt that Cena and Rock kind of took his spot for WrestleMania 29, and CM Punk really wants that WrestleMania main event, and he worked his ass off in those Drew McIntyre matches, especially the Hell in a Cell. So it's not like Punk is just coming back trying to be the big shot. Him and Drew had a hellacious match. Hellacious. And so I think that that's the right way to do it. I think that you could have Punk finally close out night one, and at least he'll have his WrestleMania main event, last match of the night with Seth Rollins, and not have to sacrifice that for Cena. You could always tell Punk, hey, maybe we could do it next year, but I don't know, man. And of course, this all depends on neither of these guys getting hurt. Let's not rule that out, because there were a few different injuries going into Mania this year. So that's one way to go about it. Also, the way they're building things, I could see another Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn match at WrestleMania, because Kevin Owens is now a heel, turning on Cody for working with Roman Reigns. Sami came out and is clearly on Roman's side against the New Bloodline. So I could see Kevin Owens eventually targeting Sami, and they have another match at WrestleMania like they did at 37. I mean, these guys have feuded for forever. I mean, El Generico and Kevin Steen, when they were on the Indies, had feuds in PWG, Ring of Honor, NXT. Like, they've been married to each other, not literally, figuratively, for years and years, and they're childhood friends. And so doing this match again, except this time Kevin's the heel and Sami's the face, which they did do in Ring of Honor. I mean, but the last time they had a match was WrestleMania 37, and Kevin was the babyface and Sami was the heel. So flipping it for this WrestleMania coming up, I think would be a good idea, since Kevin's already a heel. He's mad at Cody for working with Roman. It all sort of makes sense. You could throw that in there. You've also got the possibility of Jade Cargill versus Bianca. You've got Charlotte Flair coming back. We could easily see Charlotte Flair against a number of different opponents at WrestleMania in the women's division. You got Tiffany Stratton, who's now on the cusp of being a main eventer. She's in the main event scene, and that's a new opponent for Charlotte. Lots of possibilities, man. Becky Lynch is going to come back at some point. She's just like being a mother now. She's not going to AEW. And you've also got Drew McIntyre to throw into some big matches. There's a lot of players. You got Gunther, who will still be around, whether he's champion or not. So, but that's the way I see WrestleMania shaping up, the way I think they should do it. What do you think? Tell me. Let me know in the comments. And I know some of y'all are going to have some great ideas. Some of y'all will have some bad ideas. And some of y'all are going to think that my ideas are bad. But I think in studying Triple H booking and how many things I've gotten right based on how he books, I think there's a higher probability of this happening, for better or for worse. But what do you think? I'm curious. Please let me know down below.